On this Friday night, a community united in grief looks to the future.
We will work with everybody to make sure that this young boy is taken care of.
The immense show of support for Fayez Afzal, the youngest survivor of the London attack. Canada's role in the G7's immunization mission.
A vaccine is only as effective if it is in somebody's arm.
The problems poorer nations face in vaccinating people. Magic mushrooms for medical use.
100% is not addictive.
The potential benefits to your mental health. Plus, attracting tourists and saboteurs. BC's popular Sea to Sky Gondola is back in business.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Farah Nasser.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us at the end of a very heavy week. And we begin tonight in London, Ontario. The community is still struggling to come to terms with the loss of 4 members of one family. They were deliberately struck and killed on Sunday while out for an evening walk. Police believe they were targeted because they were Muslim. Friday is a holy day for Muslims, but in London, Ontario, it holds even more significance today. Mike Drolet is in the community tonight with our top story.
On this, the holiest day of the week for Muslims, congregants bowed their heads as they listened to the imam recite from the Quran. Their emotions raw and their thoughts no doubt preoccupied with the horrific murder of the Afzal family last Sunday.
I am expecting a lot of tears. A lot of people are going to be crying today. People were crying throughout, as we should be. This is how we grieve, right? Like, it's not beneath a person to cry. That is actually what makes us human.
Down the street at Yumna Afzal's high school, the 15-year-old is being remembered as an honor roll student and, while still young, a future leader.
She also shared with one of her teachers that she was interested in owning her own business and eventually giving back to her community.
Yumna, he says, spoke often of making her family proud. Her future, by all accounts, would have been bright.
They were an absolute success story. And everybody was looking forward to what this family would do.
In one way, that's still possible. 2 separate online fundraisers have pulled in roughly $2 million. Part of it will go to a trust fund for the only survivor of the attack, 9-year-old Fayez. But relatives of the Afzal family are also committed to Sadaqah Jariyah, a Muslim concept of leaving something behind that lives on after death to help others, like building a school or a hospital. That decision is for the future. Right now, the mosque is thinking about the funerals and what the future holds for Fayez, who is still in hospital but expected to make a full recovery.
So we will work with everybody to make sure that this young boy is taken care of in the best possible way. Nothing can replace his parents. Nothing can replace his family. But we will try our best to fill that void as best as we can.
And Farah, his future is at least partially provided for. A prominent university, which wishes to remain anonymous, called the mosque and offered a full scholarship for Fayez when he comes of age. That may be a little bit because he's only 9 still.
Incredible. And Mike, this also shows the support that's in the community. An Anglican church organized a multi-faith march, which got underway just a short time ago. It was raining where you are. What was the turnout like?
Yeah. Well, it was raining just about half an hour ago, and we expected that to impact the numbers. It really didn't. There were well over 1,000 people here, and there's going to be more joining them as they walk the 7 kilometers from the scene of the attack all the way to the London Mosque. And this is something very important for the community, to be able to show support for this family, as well as to show that this community can unite against hate. Farah?
Mike Drolet in London, thank you. MPs are calling on the Trudeau government to host an emergency summit on Islamophobia by the end of July.
All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. Accordingly, the motion is carried.
Federal lawmakers voted unanimously in support of an NDP motion demanding a national meeting in the wake of Sunday's deadly attack. The motion is non-binding, and there's no word yet on when the summit may be held. Turning now to the G7 summit in the UK. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spent the day on the English coast with leaders of the world's wealthiest nations. They're trying to find a way out of the global pandemic. Canada's federal government is expected to announce it will contribute 100 million doses for people in need. The British Prime Minister has asked his counterparts to come up with a plan to supply 1 billion doses. But will that even be enough? Abigail Beeman reports.
At this G7, the spotlight is on the new American president, and Joe Biden filled the stage with a big vaccine commitment, 500 million doses for lower-income countries.
America will be the arsenal of vaccines in our fight against COVID-19, just as America was the arsenal of democracy during World War II.
G7 leaders are expected to commit 1 billion doses to vaccinate the world. And while our leader may be less in the limelight, Canada will put up to 100 million into the pot. Broken down per capita, that's more than the U.S., but specifics are scant.
We'll be there doing Canada's full fair share. More details will be available over the weekend.
Canada was once criticized for being the only G7 nation to take doses from the COVAX facility instead of donate them. One G7 watcher says now that our vaccine rollout has picked up speed, pressure's on around the G7 table.
I think they'll look Justin Trudeau right in the eyes, face to face, and say, come on, isn't it about time?
Experts hope the 1 billion dose commitment goes beyond a flashy headline to include a delivery roadmap. There are huge challenges in vaccinating poorer and more remote parts of the world.
A vaccine is only as effective if it is in somebody's arm. So many of these countries lack the infrastructure to actually deliver them.
Vaccines have been thrown away, and we don't want to waste any more.
There are also geopolitical implications, with 2 rising global powers already filling the void.
It's not a bad thing in itself that China and Russia are providing vaccines. That is helping to save lives. But it's a role that the West has not been playing to the degree it should be, and we're potentially losing ground in terms of influence.
Some of the unanswered questions on the Canadian side include how much of this is a re-announcement. We know part of the 100 million doses comes from a previous COVAX commitment. We also don't know whether these surplus donations will be made before everyone in Canada who wants 2 doses has a chance to get them. Abigail Beeman, Global News, Falmouth, England.
Canada's commitment to share doses internationally comes as this country surpasses all larger nations administering shots domestically. It's extraordinary. Given the slow start to our vaccine rollout, Canada also reached another milestone today. 10% of people are now fully vaccinated, and about 63% have received at least 1 dose. There is strong demand for vaccine and strong supply, too. The federal government has ordered more doses per capita than any country in the world. As Eric Sorensen reports, Canada says it's willing to share, but the priority is still here.
From day one, Canadians have lined up for their COVID shots, and they've just kept coming.
I just really want to get my vaccine.
Canadian eagerness has vaulted this country to global leadership in vaccinations.
It's really ramped up to be one of the, if not the top vaccination campaign for first doses, at least, in the world. I think this is a great accomplishment.
Global vaccine distribution began slowly, unevenly. By mid-February, Canada had fallen behind many countries in initial doses. In April, was in the middle of the pack of leading vaccine nations. And now, in mid-June, Canada has surged to the top among larger countries, not only administering first doses to 63% of Canadians, but showing no signs of slowing down. Unlike some countries where vaccine hesitancy is high or the pandemic was played down, in Canada,
get vaccinated with whatever vaccine is offered to us.
Making sure that we get needles into people's arms.
Across the political spectrum, there has been a consistent message.
We need Manitobans to get vaccinated.
And the uptake has been a pleasant surprise.
There was always a concern about, are we going to see more hesitancy sooner on? And in fact, so far we haven't seen that.
Health officials are aware the last 30% may be more vaccine hesitant.
Hopefully, like I say, what we're seeing is a snowball effect. And I think as more and more Canadians get vaccinated, even with the 2 doses, I think it just increases their confidence overall.
Vaccination numbers also climbed because Canada struck contracts for tens of millions of doses from multiple companies, including 7 million this month from Moderna.
We should be grateful that they are prioritizing Canada for vaccine supply in light of the incredible global demand for vaccines.
But that incredible global demand has prompted the World Health Organization to beseech countries like Canada to share its bounty of doses now.
The ongoing vaccine crisis
is a scandalous inequity.
The G7 commitment for 1 billion doses will help, but critics say more is needed and sooner to help vulnerable populations still waiting for first doses.
How is it fair that, we are ahead of the game and we are protecting our populations much earlier compared to low-income countries?
Canada has now firmed up a commitment to share doses, but Ottawa's priority is clearly to get as many Canadians as possible fully vaccinated as soon as possible. And Canadians are showing that that is their priority too.
Perfect.
Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is allowing the release of 10 million doses of Johnson & Johnson's COVID vaccine from a Baltimore factory that had contamination problems. But the FDA says another 60 million doses must be thrown out because they are not suitable for use. The agency didn't specify exactly why. Factory employees accidentally contaminated an earlier batch of the vaccine, ruining 15 million doses. Late today, Health Canada confirmed it will not be distributing the Johnson & Johnson vaccine doses it received back in April. The agency plans to inspect the Baltimore facility later this summer. With case numbers declining in Ontario, the province kicked off its much-anticipated reopening plan today, a few days earlier than expected.
3, 2, 1.
Customers flocked to restaurant patios and stores for the first time in months. Under Step 1, outdoor dining at restaurants is allowed, so is in-person shopping at non-essential stores, but not everyone is adjusting easily. Some business owners are struggling to get staff back.
I think they're waiting to see if we're going to stay open before they're going to come back, right? Because, the staff had to come back to work, happy to come back to work, and then got laid off after not even 10 days, and then reapply for CRB or whatever assistance that they may need.
One region in Northern Ontario, the Porcupine Health Unit, is delaying easing restrictions due to a surge in cases. The rest of the province will stay in Phase 1 for at least 3 weeks to assess the impact on public health. Ontario businesses have been locked down since April. An outbreak at Calgary's Foothills Hospital has grown to 33 people, including 10 who are fully vaccinated. 22 of the cases are linked to the more contagious Delta variant. The outbreak involves both patients and staff in 3 separate units. Alberta Health Services says one person is in intensive care and it's monitoring the situation closely. The province's top doctor is emphasizing that fully vaccinated individuals can still get sick. A new Canadian study is tracking trends in COVID-19 and vaccine safety and effectiveness in youth. The research project funded by the federal government will collect data from children's hospitals across the country. Investigators are looking for symptoms in youth caused by the disease, including a rare condition called multi-system inflammatory syndrome, which can cause swelling and heart problems. They're also examining how vaccination could reduce COVID-19 hospitalizations and severe illness among youth. The Supreme Court of Canada has ruled documents related to the estate of murdered Ontario billionaires Barry and Honey Sherman be made public. In a unanimous decision, the court says the media can access files pertaining to who would inherit the couple's money and assets. The estate wanted to have files sealed, arguing safety and privacy concerns. But in its ruling, the court reaffirmed that court proceedings are open to the public. The prominent couple was found dead in their Toronto home in December of 2017. The murders remain under investigation. The leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier, was arrested in Manitoba today.
Step out of the vehicle. I'm going to place you under arrest right now.
Yeah.
Bernier was put in handcuffs and taken into custody for participating in a rally against COVID-19 restrictions just outside St. Pierre. He's charged under the Public Health Act. He was ticketed earlier in the day during a rally in another community. Bernier says he plans to fight the charges. Magic mushrooms are moving into the mainstream. Coming up, the research into how they could improve mental health. Now to a boom in the mushroom industry, the psychedelic kind. For years, they were part of the war on drugs, but more recently, research shows they can help with conditions like anxiety, depression, and trauma. Technically, magic mushrooms are illegal, but clinical trials are about to begin in Canada. As Robin Gill reports, those who have undergone this therapy are showing promising results.
The first thing you notice about Lori Brooks is how she's amazingly at peace.
for someone who has terminal cancer.
I've had 3 years to get used to the fact that I'm most likely not going to survive this.
That acceptance followed her treatment with a mind-altering drug, psilocybin, also known as magic mushrooms. The 6-hour immersive experience with a therapist by her side extinguished her anxiety.
Did you think that this was going to help you deal with dying?
Yes. So I feel like I'm living on bonus time right now.
This lab in Nanaimo, BC, Numinous, is the first company in Canada to legally harvest these hallucinogenics. It is set to begin clinical trials on patients using macrodoses. The brain has all these pathways, much like a highway. When a patient has a psychedelic experience, different parts of the brain that weren't connecting now do. This greater neuroplasticity enhances the brain's ability to reorganize thought patterns to deal with anxiety, depression, or trauma.
Groups at Johns Hopkins University and other Ivy League institutions in the United States have been studying psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy for smoking cessation, for depression, for anxiety associated with a life-threatening illness like individuals with cancer, and have all shown dramatic benefits in terms of improvements in mental disorder symptoms.
Among people dealing with mood disorders, even everyday stress and anxiety, the microdosing market is picking up. It's in a legal gray area, though as the name suggests, these capsules are not nearly as strong as the dose used in therapy. And the research shows they're not habit-forming.
100% is not addictive. Mushrooms are known for being a pain reliever, just like opioids can be. However, one is addictive and one is not. Mushrooms, psychedelics can act as a natural addiction disruptor.
The first time Lori Brooks took a trip, it was an underground session with a therapist present. She's now one of a handful of patients enrolled in a special federal program where she's legally allowed to dose.
You would never know that looking at me that I have cancer and that I'm probably in the last stages of cancer.
The disease doesn't consume the time she has left. It's just moved to the periphery of her life, where she says it belongs. Robin Gill, Global News, Abbotsford, BC.
There's still so much we don't know about magic mushrooms. To learn more, watch Robin's full story on The New Reality tomorrow at 7 p.m., 5 p.m. in BC, right here on Global. Still ahead, Europe kicks off its biggest sporting event, scoring a pandemic first.
Are you supposed to be looking as if you're enjoying it?
Yes, definitely.
Queen Elizabeth made G7 world leaders laugh today during a photo op and royal reception at Eden Park. It's the first time U.S. President Joe Biden has met the Queen since taking office. It's also the first time the 95-year-old monarch and other members of the royal family have taken part in the talks. They're staying away from politics, focusing on pandemic recovery and the planet's health. Soccer's European Championship, Euro 2020, kicks off in Rome today after being postponed by a year because of the pandemic. Tens of thousands of fans are expected to attend matches in 11 different countries. Foreign travelers can apply for visas with quarantine exemptions in place for ticket holders. Spectators must show they are fully vaccinated and have received a negative COVID test. There will also be limited capacity and staggered arrival times at stadiums. A twice vandalized gondola reopens in BC. Next, what's being done to stop future sabotage. Check this out, a selfie from Mars. It's China's first Mars rover posed next to its landing platform. It was taken with a wireless camera that the rover placed on the surface of the red planet before rushing back for the shot. China is the second country to land and operate a spacecraft on Mars after the United States. It's remote-controlled, solar-powered, and will study the surface and atmosphere of Mars. Visitors to a popular tourist attraction in BC can soon take selfies of their own again. The Sky Gondola reopened today in Squamish. The site was shut for 8 months after 2 separate acts of vandalism. Both times, cables were severed, causing the gondola cars to crash to the ground, and both cases are still unsolved. Global's Paul Johnson is in Squamish tonight. Paul, this day was a long time coming.
For
For a lot of people who were following this story, the first time this cable was cut, people were very surprised. But the second time this cable was sabotaged, people were shocked. And a lot of people were wondering if this attraction would ever reopen. But here we are. Now, getting to this point was a costly and unprecedented challenge. They had to get a new cable made in Switzerland and installed here, and they had to replace all of the cabin cars. And then on top of that, because the saboteur is still at large, they had to create and deploy what is likely the most sophisticated surveillance system for any gondola in North America, if not anywhere in the world. Here's the general manager.
Not that we don't expect something bad to happen ever in our future, but our posture now is in anticipation of that. We've created something that truly is extraordinary and somewhat unheard of outside of industries such as the nuclear space. So we're prepared as anybody could possibly be, and that I can say with great confidence.
So as to this saboteur, this is still an open and very active investigation. It's believed that both times the cable was cut, it was done using a simple angle grinder, the kind of tool that you could get at any tool supply store. The motive is still unknown, but the consequences for this person or any people involved will be very severe if caught. It's worth pointing out that the second time the cable was cut, there was a night security guard here who was nearly killed when that cable came down. Farah?
Paul Johnson in Squamish, BC. Thank you, Paul. And that is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Farah Nasser. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Tonight's Your Canada is the town of Redcliffe in southern Alberta. We love seeing your Canada, so please keep sending us your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Robin Gill will be with you tomorrow. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.